IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 78 of Shunya One. We have a really interesting episode today with Arpit Ratan of Signsy. He's the co-founder over there, and Signsy is a really interesting company that does a lot of stuff around the regulatory processes of banks and other financial companies. It's a really interesting conversation where we get into some of the discussions around digital identity and how that moves around. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on our Slack channel as well. We asked the question, what should be at the center of your tech product, design or technology? This was in response to Amit Das's episode that we did previous week. The answers were pretty interesting. We got 55% who said design should be at the center of things, 45% who said technology should be at the center of things. I think that's as even a split as we've ever had on this. And with that, let me get you on with the show.
All right, welcome to Shunya One. Today we're talking to Arpit Ratan, the co-founder of Signsy.com. Welcome to the show, Arpit. How are you doing?
Good.
You have been one of the unique founders we've had on the show who has moved to Bombay from Bangalore.
There you go.
And that kicks off the topic for the day. But welcome to the show. Of course, we want to hear about, what you're building at Signsy and what you have been building, the genesis of it. But even before that, I think you're actually a lawyer by profession, and you've started out with that side of, your degree and that side of your career.
Correct.
How did that translate into what you're doing today? And tell us a little bit about the whole background and the story of Signsy.
I did pass out of law, and I was a lawyer. What I did after a year of working with a law firm, I realized it wasn't cutting out for me. It was just too monotonous. So I started my own law firm 1 year down the line. And then it did well. We were running it for 3-4 years. And then again, it struck me that what I'm doing is somehow not making enough impact. And there were two things which were happening. One was I did not feel I was contributing enough. The second was I felt very frustrated with some of the laws which are around and some of the practices which are around. So, for example, even today, if you have to notify a person that there's a case against him, it takes almost 60 days. Because somebody has to go and either do a post which may return, and that post has to be through Indian, government postal services. And whereas the same guy might be posting Facebook messages every second day, but in court record it keeps appearing that this guy is not found.
Oh, wow.
And this was so frustrating to see that while technology has taken so many leaps and bounds, this court system is somewhere, stuck in mid-18th century.
Wow.
And
Not even the 19th, you're going right down to the 18th. Huh?
Yeah, and once you study law, you understand that there's a logic why this law exists. Whereas outside the legal system, you just believe it's meant to be. Mm-hmm. But as a lawyer, you always realize that this is evolved to be here. So there's a lot of science which has gone behind why law exists.
Right.
And once you understand that, you start questioning that why it is even the same way now, once there's so much of technology which can enable out of it. And during the same time, Ankit, who's also my brother and a co-founder at Signsy, he had come back from US where he was working with some banks on data analytics. And that was a time when data analytics was a very big thing. And he came back to India and started his own company in data analytics. And we started talking about these things that, legal profession as such is one of the professions which is like not touched by technology. Right. It's completely outside the scope of any entrepreneur, startups, etc. Right? And that is when the whole idea around Signsy came. One thing led to another. And here we are after almost 4 years.
So can you describe Signsy for everybody just to kind of give them an idea of what you guys actually do?
Yeah, so at Signsy, so our thesis is that end of the day, one of the reasons why the whole legal world is stuck outside technology and is very, very manual and paper driven is because as humans, we have evolved in a way to trust other humans or trust documents and papers. So I'll give you an example that today if I need to prove that I am Arpit, I need to show a PAN card. So I'm trusting a document. Similarly, if I need to prove and that I own this flat, for example, I need to show another document.
Right.
So the way trust has evolved over the years is through humans or documents and paper.
Right.
And the idea at Signsy is that if we need to digitize the legal and compliance, we will need to digitize this trust. And at Scienzy, what we say is that we are building a digital trust infrastructure. We are enabling trust to be delivered as a service the way other things are delivered, through online, through phone apps, through web services, and digitize this trust and then make sure that it's delivered. What this ends up in the real world may be faster onboardings in banks, faster contracting between two parties, faster resolution. So the solutions can be numerous, but at the core of the vision is how do we digitize and unlock this trust and make it available like a service.
Could you give like a couple of use cases so that it just to just again clarify what, like, how would people use it, right? I mean, like, if I'm a customer, would I use Scienzy, or would the bank be using Scienzy? How does that work?
So I'll give you an example. So let's say if I have to give a loan to a friend, right? I don't ask for his KYC. I don't do any kind of CIBIL check around my friend, and I'm pretty much sure that I'll get the money back, right? So what we say is that there are three elements of any trust system. One is identity. So for example, in a friend, I know him, I know who he is, I know his house. Second is background check. Again, in this example of friend, I know his background, I know what's his education, I know where he works, I know how much salary he makes. And the third is a system of risk and reward. In the real world, that's the judicial system, which either penalizes you or rewards you depending on if you followed a contract. And in a social world, that's social stigma. So if he doesn't return that money to me, he has the risk of losing my friendship. So all trust protocols or systems work on these three elements. And at Scienzy, what we do is we digitize these three things. So today we have these three product verticals within our company. One is we call as identity. One we call as ARI, which is algorithmic risk intelligence, which does a background check. And the third is digital contracts. And because for us today, that's what translates to a risk and reward. And a combination of these three elements can basically allow you to either deliver a loan to somebody through which can be a bank or NBFC. It can allow you to open an account. It can allow you to do a transaction with the person, give him credit. So it can translate into anything. And for us, that end solution is agnostic. But what we really want to do is digitize these three aspects of trust: identity, background check, and risk and reward, and make it as simple as giving a loan to a friend. Right? Which means that if I could do this digitally in real time, I could as easily give a loan to somebody in Assam, could give a loan to somebody sitting in Sri Lanka, could be ensured that everything comes back the way I do it with a friend. So make it that simple and seamless.
Awesome.
And this also, coming back to the earlier point about how documents are something which we trust today, and are you also then doing the digitization of those documents, or is there a third new documentation identity or something which you're creating which is within your network? Or like, if I were to use your platform for proof of that I own something, how would that work?
Yes, so I think that's a very good question. So we do not believe in centralization of IDs. We believe in decentralization of ID. So we believe that each person should own his own ID. It can be a document, it can be a Google Gmail ID for you. So which means each person should have the control of how I want to be identified,
right?
What kind of background information I want to give, what kind of protocols I want to establish to share this information with a third person. So as one individual, I can say that I want to use only my PAN card as identity. Some other person may say I want to use my Facebook ID. It is Scienzy's job to then establish that, can I trust this Facebook ID, or can I trust this guy with a PAN ID, or can I trust this guy coming with Aadhaar ID? But our idea is to give this ownership back to the customer and do not centralize any ID, which means you are not creating any IDs for the customer. The second thing, and you're right today, because in the regulated space, ID documents are very, very important. One very large part of what we are doing today is kind of enabling technology to do the same thing which a human does. So for example, if I show you a PAN card today and I say I'm Arpit, there are three things that you do. One is you recognize that this looks like a PAN card. So you have an ability to recognize because you've seen PAN cards before in your life.
Correct.
The second is you read my name of the PAN card. And the third thing you do is you look at the image on that PAN card and look at me and say that
it's the same guy.
It's the same guy.
Right.
Now what we internally have an entire team of AI, and that team works on this technology called computer vision. And computer vision is trying to replicate that human ability to do these three things.
Right.
One very interesting part about this and how we kind of established this team was that way back when we were just three founders, we were looking for ideas, we were looking for mentorship. We went to this very big, I won't name the institute, but a very big government institute which is famous for, very advanced computing research, etc. And we went to them saying that this is a large problem and we need to solve it. Is there any technology that at least has reached a level from which we can build on top of it?
Right.
And we were meeting the director of the institute, and he explained to us how building reading of documents and OCR extraction is a very tough technology, and this institute has spent like years and good amount of dollars doing it, and still they have not been able to do it. And he said we should not get into this at all. We should just use what is available off the shelf from so there are a lot of foreign companies which are into this.
Right.
And it was we came out and we were like we went there to learn how to do it, and this person just said don't do it.
Like every startup story. Yes. There's always someone who says don't do this.
And so we came back, we thought about it. All three of us founders are a little stubborn. So Ankur, who's our CTO, he said that I think let's try it out. And then these guys for the last 2.5 years build their own machine learning, build their own deep learning. One of the advantages that we had as Signsy is that we do a lot of onboardings across customers. So like for today, we almost get 500,000 calls a month. So we get a lot of data which passes through our systems. And therefore, we had a huge data pipe, which is very important for
Training. For your,
and we then started building our own systems because we realized that maybe they couldn't do it because one, their approach was wrong, and second, maybe they did not even do the enough effort to train it on good amount of data. And when we trained on this massive amount of data, we today have our own extraction technology called Dory, and it is as good as Google for Indian IDs, because when you start looking at a specific problem and you start training the machine to solve a specific problem, it gets very, very good.
Right.
So what exactly does it do?
It extracts data
From a PAN card, from an image.
Yeah, three things it does. It extracts the photo from the document. It extracts the text from the document, and it detects it as a PAN card. So it says that I have confidence that this looks like a PAN card to me. And then what it does, it matches this face that it has extracted to another face which we get from video onboardings.
Right.
So we'll take a
video. I've
video.
done a few of those, yes.
Yeah, so we'll take a video of the guy and then we'll match these two to say these are very accurate or these are not accurate. And all of this is built in-house. All of this is built as a proprietary within the company, which I think we thought was impossible 2.5 3 years ago. We never thought that we'll be close to Google. In fact, today Google is the only OCR engine which is better than us at certain levels. On-premise OCR engine on Indian IDs, Dory, which is our own proprietary, is globally the best extraction technology.
Oh,
and
wow.
globally.
Wow.
Like globally, AB is supposed to be the top on-premise solution. We beat AB hands down on Indian IDs.
How do you test this? I mean, I'm just curious to know how
you
you
have
calibrate and test.
You have their APIs.
Okay.
So you just put the same image in these multiple APIs and you get that data.
Oh, nice. Nice. Amazing. So you've benchmarked against all of these guys and been able to
in fact, we have published these reports. We have put it out. So one of the good things which are with our AI team is, so what one of the things that we did is we said that it's good to solve customer problems, but a lot of time customers are not helping you to build future products.
Correct.
So we then
They're cagey about their data and whatnot.
plus they have an immediate need, right? And that need may not be there 1 year down the line, and suddenly your product is redundant because
Yes.
it solved a problem for them, but so what we did is we hyphened off a separate team which we call the AI team, which does not work on any customer projects.
Okay.
So
Nice.
its job is only to build and work on research, and
Nice.
it only does research.
Okay.
So this is the team which keeps calibrating it against, and what this team does is that as part of their deliverables, they publish these reports.
Nice.
So they publish how they made this, so that because we feel that in India we've been told too much that Google has the best technology, Facebook has this AI, Amazon has this, and we've been constantly being bombarded by that marketing and branding to say that as Indian companies we're just trying to either do servicing or catching up.
Right.
Correct.
And what we want to tell it to everyone that just do it yourself with enough hard work, with enough time and patience. We will also get there.
Yeah, and we'll crack it. Yeah.
We will also crack it, right?
Yeah.
So we keep publishing these reports to kind of motivate everyone who's in this AI space and who's trying to do it, is that it's possible. It's possible to be as good as a Google, beat an Abby, beat Microsoft. So our system works better today on extraction than IBM Watson, than Microsoft, than Abby. Google is only the one which we are comparing, but my team tells me we'll very soon, in next 4 months, they say we will cross Google.
Awesome.
Nice.
So
That is incredible, actually. I mean, and again, this is just because you focused on this one piece of problem solving, and
Yes.
and you built for it, right?
correct.
Coming back to what you do from a product point of view, how do you get your customers today to rely on this technology, and what was the experience, in fact, getting the first customer? Because even that's something which, when you started the conversation, right, you said that you still face so much regulation in India. There's people don't use these electronic products or electronic digital IDs.
Correct.
I mean, the government has tried to do their own version of a lot of things. There's so much conversation around that.
Correct.
How did you get your product out on the road and working with the customers you have today?
Yeah, so I think we work in an enterprise space, and in that space, it's very hard to get customers, because not only do you have to sell them the product, but you have to sell them trust. You have to sell them that your company is big enough. You have to sell them that
be around for the next 5 years.
yes, you are
Full
compliant.
tenders.
Yeah, you're not good enough for us. And also there are a lot of vendors which go to these large banks and offer a lot of stuff for free.
Right.
So you're also fighting
Everything.
a
pretty
price
much.
war, right? With these, and because all vendors on the world will want to get
The business from
the
those
business from them. So you're kind of fighting at all positions. So one clear thesis we had even initially is that we will never give any product for free or even at low cost, because at the early stage like ours, discovering the problem and product fit is far more important than business.
Right.
And when you give something for free or at low price, you do not know whether it was a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And
The customer doesn't value it.
you don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
And even if you give it for low price, you don't know whether it was even a large enough problem to be solved,
Right.
because it came very cheap for the customer.
Right.
So we said that we will charge whatever the value of the solution is. We will not budge on that, because then we're not discovering whether you're even solving a problem, and solving a problem and building a product fit is far more important, I think, in an entrepreneur journey than earning revenues, at least initially. So that was clear thesis. How we, I think, did it is just patience. I think with a large player, they are testing you at every moment. So they want you to keep following up, not because they like that, but I think that's a way of testing whether this guy is going to be around,
Right.
whether they will stick to it. Are they passionate enough? Do they have persistence? Do they have that commitment? So I think with them, you just need to keep doing it. And with most banks, the average sales cycle was 8 months.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's
It's actually not bad for banks, is it?
Yeah, and there's one bank we close. So we today have the largest private sector. We have the largest public sector bank working with us. So with them, the sales cycle was like 2 years.
wow.
So like,
Yeah.
I must have done not less than 70 meetings, like the whole team combined. I would have done not less than 70 in-person meetings with each of these.
No wonder
customers.
you moved to Bombay. You had to.
Yeah. So I think it's just about patience and it's a lot of luck. End of the day, if you're there and the guy has that problem, he wants it to be solved, you're in that room, you'll jump on it.
And of course, your product is way above,
Anything that
exists and
Correct.
exists for them today.
Correct.
On that note, I think we'll take a quick break, come back and talk some more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you are not following us on social media, please make sure you do. And it's about time that you did. So we're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Go to whichever platform you prefer or all three of them and click and follow. Also, you should check out our Instagram feed. We have a lot of interesting stuff going on over there. Peeks inside what's going on in the studio, polls, all kinds of cool stuff. So definitely come out there. Want to thank our sponsors this week, Cambly, Intel, and Storytel. Our sponsors make this stuff possible, and so please make sure that you shout out to them. Let them know that you appreciate it. One more note before we get into talking about what went on in the network this week, and that was that I would appreciate, deeply appreciate it, if you guys could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey or go to the website and click on the survey heading. And what we're going to do is we're going to do another listener survey. We'd like to know a little bit more about you, who's listening to us, why you're listening to us, what you want out of us, all of that kind of stuff. So, it would be really, really helpful to us if we could get a little bit of more information from you guys about who you are, and that would help us kind of go out and talk to advertisers, which is, again, as I mentioned earlier, how we get this thing going. So this week we're premiering a new Hindi storytelling show. It's called Tapri Tales and it's hosted by Madhuri Advani. Madhuri narrates day-to-day stories and occurrences in women's lives across generations. This week she questions the tea-serving traditions in our house through the mother and daughter pair in her story called Chai Ki Cha. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by senior journalist and author Veer Sanghvi. He talks to Cyrus about his new book Game Changers and discusses the prominent personalities that have impacted India. They also touch upon election results and what the future might hold. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet is joined by journalist Bhanush Kapal and co-founder of Gully Gang Entertainment, Chaitanya Kataria. Together, they talk about the hype around hip-hop in India and its cultural impact. On Filter Coffee, Karthik is joined by NBA commentator and author Akshay Manwani. In the episode, Akshay expresses his passion for classic Indian cinema, especially the works of Sahir Ludhianvi and Nasir Hussain, and discusses the evolution of the NBA in India. On Ganatantra, Dr. Orne Chani joins Saryu and Alok to discuss the first electoral rolls, the entrenchment of democracy in India, and why, despite trying times, we must take heart. On the Empowering series, Zarina is joined by Dr. Mithika Kanabar. They discuss the relationship between stress and addiction. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav talks about his 6-month-long stay in Shanghai and how it changes outlook towards Chinese tourists. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ayushi and Ritasha test each other by asking 20 questions. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
All right, welcome back. We've been talking to Arpit about all the stuff that Scienzy does and, of course, all the cool technology that you and the team have built, including so much which you've invested in, the first couple of years before, like you said, you had any customers.
Yeah.
In a certain, this whole platform which you have of digital trust or digital identity or documentation and so on. How does this... there's obviously no consumer facing interface to this, right? There is no, like you said, you don't give customers an ID of sorts.
Correct.
So, but your customers like banks, they use your platform to do their operations.
Yes.
So, in a way, how they are putting the trust in your algorithms versus the regular paper pushing document verification they used to do, right?
Correct.
So is this a platform shift from the way they used to do things? And are they going to drop is this a chance for them to drop having to worry about, KYC and whatnot altogether?
Yeah, so see, if you look at bank, there is a very funny story which is going on. That if you see that all the products in banks are today digital, right? It's on app, my internet banking. I can shift 10 lakh from one account to other account in minutes. But if I need to open a bank account, that will take me days.
Yeah.
And multiple paperworks. And one of the reasons why it's happening is that today the way bank forces, there's 20-30% people who are doing the front end, and there's 70% people who are doing a back end. So there may be only one guy who might visit you to take your documents to open an account, but there'll be 3 guys who will check your document if they're correct or not.
Right.
And that is very funny and illogical. And today technology has the ability to do that backend completely. So technology can look at the documents, and the reason it is 3 people check it because you feel that the first guy might make a mistake. So you say, okay, the second guy should check it also. And then you say, okay, the second guy might also make a mistake. So, the third guy also should check it. So there's this 6I principle which they say in banking. And that's just because you feel that the human is susceptible to error. But if all those matching is happening through an algorithm, it is perfect every time. Even if when it's not able to read, it will tell you I'm not able to read. And like a human, when he makes error, he will say, no, it's fine. According to me, everything matched out. So one of the things that we're trying to say is that shift all these people from the back end to the front end. Make the customers more delightful, make the customer experience more delightful. Today, if I call a bank, I have an issue, I'm put on hold for I don't know how many minutes before I can even reach. If I go to a bank branch, I'll be given a token and I'll be sitting, waiting.
I don't want to do either of this. I don't want to call my bank. I don't even want to go to the bank.
Yeah, and even if you have to, there should be enough. So there is one good story about a bank in Brazil which has made its branches like coffee shops. Oh. So if you enter, there is no paperwork, there's nothing, there's a coffee, somebody will come sit with you, they'll come with a tab, everything happens on that tab or an app. Wow. And that's how banks should be. All the employees should from the back end shift to the front end. And that's our thesis at Signsea. We are saying that this 3I principle of looking at documents doesn't work in the AI world because AI can do it perfectly.
Right.
So you replace that whole back office through AI, let the whole decisioning, let the all manual paperwork, all this redundant job be given to a engine, and start having more people to interact with your customers. Give them better experience the way Amazon does. If you today raise a support ticket at Amazon, it's so fast, it's so personal, it's so customized to you. Make that happen. And that's what we're trying to do at Signsea, that enable banks to completely reduce their ops so that one, speed of delivery is faster because now 3 people don't need to look at it. So your speed is much, much faster.
Right.
And at the same time, because your front end customer now can have more, or you can deploy more investment on the front end customer, you may be able to enhance his experience.
And there's also an aspect of course, in your product and in your marketing, you talk about how you use all of these technologies. And one of them stands out as blockchain.
Yeah.
I know that's a common buzzword that a lot of startups use, but obviously you have used aspects of it, or you're exploring aspects of it. Correct. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so on blockchain, what we believe is that most of the banks and the financial world is also talking about blockchain a lot, and it's almost like after 2 years of every bank being on blockchain, there doesn't seem to be a single product that bank has in blockchain, which is, I don't know, it's a question to be asked that what happened to all that investment that banks were doing on blockchain.
Right.
But what we genuinely believe is that blockchain as a technology is to be utilized for untrusted parties.
Right.
And in a bank scenario, everyone is a trusted party. So the usage of blockchain in a regulated world is very, very minimal.
Right.
Its large usage will be used for untrusted parties outside the system, which was cryptocurrency.
Correct.
Even though for whatever reasons it was not accepted widely, but it was the real use case. And I think trying to fit blockchain into every problem that an institution may be facing is, I think,
is illogical.
Is illogical. So the technology that we are working on with blockchain is that, because we talk about unlocking trust, what we are talking about is that among untrusted parties, if you have to deal, we can use blockchain as one of the ledgers to record and these transactions. What the eventual solution might be, that is something which is for us right now under the wraps. We may release it in the next 6 months. That's at least our pipeline. So we'll release it under 6 months. But one clear thesis is that we do not feel that it has an application in a regulated space, especially when the parties to that chain are also regulated companies, because in that case, you already have a regulator. You can use his database.
Correct.
Why do you need a distributed like.
On that note, right? You mentioned regulator and database, and the first thing pops to mind is Aadhaar, right? I mean, that's literally the two. If you play word association, that's what comes out. What's your take on that, and how have you seen that this sort of parallel infrastructure which Aadhaar has built and now been it's gone through so much? How have you guys compared to that, or is there anything to any way in which you all see you guys building something which is like a parallel infrastructure of sorts?
So one interesting fact about our company is that we are a pre-Aadhaar company.
Right.
So when we started, Aadhaar existed, but all this Aadhaar infrastructure did not exist.
Correct. The digitalization of it had not happened.
Yeah. So when we launched our first KYC system, we used Aadhaar as a card, but we never used Aadhaar authentication.
Right.
We never used eKYC. The first time that we launched our digital contracting protocol, we did not use Aadhaar eSign because it didn't exist. Both of them did not exist.
Correct.
And obviously, we were making a lot of investment into both these technologies. Once Aadhaar started coming and we started seeing usage of it, I coming from a legal background, I started taking a lot of the legal objections that were happening very seriously. Even though within the banking space, everyone was, and even because government was pushing it so much, everyone was like, this is the only thing which is going to happen in India. But because of the kind of objections, and we did a lot of research on the objections. We did a very deep research on the objections. We very, very religiously followed all the... so Supreme Court came out with a judgment now. But in the last 2 years, it was giving interim orders.
Right.
And I think where everyone missed it is that Supreme Court had already spelled it out that they're not going to allow it, at least for certain sectors.
Right.
And people should have seen it. I mean, it's good to say that I will turn a blind eye to everything and I just believe in one, God and
final statement, whatever it happens.
Yeah,
until then.
So I'll stand in front of a car and I'll wait for the God to save me. But but you should see the car coming and get out of the way.
Yeah.
So because we had such a strong thesis that at least even if Aadhaar is there, you would need other identity because a lot of people will not have access to the Aadhaar infrastructure. We still kept investing into building an entire technology stack which can also do a real-time onboarding, a real-time KYC, a real-time contracting, giving the same experience which Aadhaar will give you, and without using the Aadhaar infrastructure.
Yeah.
And of course, once the judgment came a couple of weeks ago, suddenly, the cat was out of the bag.
Right.
Everyone... and there are banks which had built no other infrastructure than Aadhaar infrastructure. There are smaller entities which do not even have an operations team. Right. So suddenly their business goes away because if they can't use Aadhaar, they don't even have a... So large banks still have branches.
Correct.
But a lot of these other guys don't even have branches.
Right.
So then, of course, now it's a very big use case for us. We are pushing a lot of investment, resources into it. But the way we see this also developing, and one trend we've clearly seen, and we say is that privacy is something which is very core to what we do at Scienzy.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that the way food, shelter, these are like important human rights. I think privacy is as essential. Even if some government violates it today, even if some body violates it today, eventually that will come into being.
Right.
So central databases, according to us, are the worst way of keeping huge IDs because there's a huge security risk, there's a risk of violation, and therefore we believe that give it back to the customer, let him choose the identity, let the entire process of identification happen on his end. Mm-hmm. And all I so for example, if I'm walking into a bar, they ask you for an ID.
Yeah.
But what they really want to know is your age.
Correct.
Right. So similarly, for different purposes, I might not need. So even if I'm giving you a loan, I might not need to know your name. Yeah. I might need to know whether you pay me the loan back.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are different aspects of identity, and we believe that people don't need to always get
Disclose
all information.
Everything. Yeah.
As long as my purpose gets solved.
Yeah.
So what Scienzy would try to do, and where we are seeing everything going, is that eventually give the control back, have a trusted middle engine which the person can also trust and the entity can also trust. And we can eventually then do the processing through AI. AI would mean that there's no human intervention.
Right.
So there's an engine which looks at the information, does the processing, and end of the day, that's not disclosed to anyone.
Right.
It's only the result which comes to the end bank saying approved, not approved, good to go, not good to go.
Yeah, and it's only, like you said, on demand, on request, on need to know sort of basis.
Correct.
So how much data do you have to, I mean, like if you're going to make a determination of whether or not somebody is to get a loan, right?
Yeah.
What are the kinds of data sources that you work with to kind of figure that part of things out?
So today we have around 64 data services that we use. And within these 64 also there are brackets.
Okay.
So for example, we have a AML CFT, which is very important for onboardings. So within our AML CFT, we would have at least 120 databases that we use to hit and check whether it's negative or not. So so there have been two parts in our technology development. One part of technology has been building the entire AI stack, which we feel is very important to replace that human check. And the second part is integrating and aggregating
all those data.
These public databases.
Right.
And so to enable you to do a lot of validations in real time.
Interesting.
And these public databases have, I mean, I know everyone's building on top of these, and these have existed for a while, right? Could you name some examples? Like, what are these sources and do people, I feel, even know that their information is available on these sources? CIBIL is the most common one, right? For financial credibility. But are there any others? Like, what are these other sources? I mean, everyone just talks about Aadhaar and that got all the hype. But there are these other legitimate sources of data where... and how much control does a consumer have over what goes there?
Right. So, see, a large part of databases are actually negative. So, for example, all court cases are actually a public data. And a lot of them are digitized today. Similarly, SBI releases a list of willful defaulters.
Right.
Your CVC releases a list of people that it is under inquiry.
Right.
So, like that...
So, they're blacklist databases.
Correct.
So they're exception databases, right?
Yes. Similarly, there is a database for companies where all the registered companies you will find, like ministry. You have GST where you can find from the GST number the details of a company or a proprietor or partnership.
Right.
So like that for different things you have different kind of databases. Like just to check lawyers, you have an entire database which will list all lawyers. There's a database which will list all company secretaries. There's one which will list all chartered accountants.
And these are public domain?
These are public domain.
Okay.
And so like that you have like multiple, and even government has a portal called data.gov.in. Where the government itself is giving a lot of data available publicly.
Right.
But we do not believe in that to be the future, to be very honest.
Right.
We feel that data, end of the day, will be owned by the customer himself. So even though central databases exist today, but the way we saw with Aadhaar, that same logic should be applied to all central databases eventually.
Correct.
So it will not be the database which will be the strength, because as a customer, I will decide what I want to choose to share.
Right.
But it will be your ability to use artificial intelligence to judge the document, judge the person.
So you would look at like other signals besides publicly available data in that sense, or are you saying that it should be just on the basis of whatever they submit, you make a determination based on that? I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that's a reasonable question.
So I'll take that. So see, the way identity has evolved is human based, which means the only thing I'm doing today is ID check, right? But the way identity exists in the digital world is not just document. The identity in digital world is your phone number, your GPS location, your IMEI, your IP address, the web browser that you're using, what kind of cache you have in your memory. So a digital identity is a lot more than just the ID.
It's actually a lot more dangerous than
just
the physical ID.
Yes, and in fact today what we believe at Scienzy is that it's a better way of identifying somebody. Like I'm more closer to my phone than my PAN card. So we feel that there's a lot more to the identity space. Obviously banks are working on legacy system, it will take time before the world evolves. But for a company like ours, because we're looking at the future, what we need to work on is that how will this identity look 5 years down the line, and build enough intelligence to do risk scoring, do identity checks, do real-time monitoring, taking into account that a lot of these identities will only be digital identities in future.
Interesting. So a question that comes to mind based on what you're saying, right, is if you're with different customers that you deal with, right, the solutions I'm going to guess are fairly customized to each specific customer, right? I mean, like if there is a private bank who is looking at you guys to validate loans as opposed to, say, somebody who is looking at you to validate, I mean, like how different are the ways that these kinds of different solutions that you provide to different customers, how much customization is required on each of these?
So to be honest, initially there was a lot which was required, but we realized that end of the day there are only two types of customers. One is an individual and the other is a non-individual.
Okay.
So then what we did, and there are only three things you want to know, right? Identity, background, risk and reward.
Right.
So then what we built was we built a modular middle engine.
Okay.
Which has all the services for identity, all the services for background check, and all the services for doing the authentication and contracting.
Right.
And we built two engines, one for an individual, one for a non-individual. And then we just go to the bank and say, this is the engine, whatever you want to use, you can plug in.
Right.
You'll
You
get an output.
productize it basically.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So now today we just have that engine. We just go to bank, say, here's the engine. Somebody can build a front end for you, make it look cool.
Let them use it.
Let
So,
them use it that way, yeah.
so coming back to the point that as a consumer, I actually never interact with a Signsy system.
Yes.
I interact with whatever the bank has built.
Correct.
And they then send the data to your engine, which
Correct.
does all the magic behind it. Because
Correct.
I've actually done a few selfie videos for getting my identity done. But
Interesting.
it's been...
I
you
don't
have to
think
do it.
I haven't come across it yet, but I'm looking to see when I do.
Yes, it's quite awkward. But I guess this is the world we live in. I have a random dystopian question. I mean, again, go outside of our country, right?
Yeah.
There's, again, so much talk globally about identity. There is,
Yeah.
I think the West is sort of still figuring this out because they have been generally privacy aware more than our country has been, or our Asian nations have been. And then there is China, which is the other extreme, which says you have no privacy, and they run systems at scale on like not just public databases but real public, like the whole like their cameras are literally detecting who you are as you walk past in the road.
Yeah, there was that story, about like
And they have like
They
ID.
have-
They have a
no,
score
yeah.
given in real time based on, did you just drop something on the road there? Like you littered. Sorry, but what's your? Do you have these? Does your team ever look at how to not become that?
No, I think that's absolutely the right debate to be had at today's age. And what at our team and what at Signsy we believe is that privacy has to be at the core of what you do. End of the day, and that is one of the reasons that we always were wanting to build an alternative to Aadhaar system also, is because we believe that you cannot keep such a large information stored centrally and also use it for transactions because then you start creating a very, very massive database. So one of the things that we always felt was that end of the day, as a consumer, if I feel my privacy is violated, I will stop interacting with that market, business or system. So if markets have to survive in a independent democratic country, China is a very different example because it is a very autocratic country. But in democratic independent countries, consumer trust is the most important basis to establish an economy.
Right.
Consumer should trust the business. Consumer should trust that product you're buying. And in a digital world, that's even more important because consumer is quite literally downloading you on your phone. You're tracking his location, etc. So we felt even for a product to survive, for it has to be centered around privacy. Because if you lose that customer's trust and privacy, that entire economy is gone.
Right.
And at Signsy, at a lot of points of time, and because the competition sometimes is very, very heavy, you always face these questions and dilemmas. that your competitor has built a product, it's somewhere in the gray. Should you do it or not? Your customer will push you saying that
I want this. Yeah,
I want this. And I've had multiple conversations with banks, and they said that if you want to take it, go ahead. We will not build it.
Right.
And I think even for a customer, it's very difficult thing to hear that, I'm the regulated entity. I'm saying that I'm okay with taking this technology. And we tell them that we don't feel that this is right.
Yeah.
And as a company, we can, even if you want, we can help you with the tech. We can help you how this is done. But we are not going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Because we don't believe that this is the right thing to do. And it's good to have that, I think, principle very set in stone, because then whenever you are down, and it's very, very early for us, but whenever we are down the road and, you face different questions, I think once you've set it as a principle, it's very easy to make those decisions going forward. And the luck has been on our side. It has eventually happened that, we told the bank, please don't do this. We will not do this for you.
Right.
And eventually the regulator would come down and say that,
this is not acceptable.
This is not the acceptable way of doing something.
Right.
And so I think my one, what I keep telling any young entrepreneurs that I meet, I say that you believe in yourself first.
Right.
And forget what your customer is saying. That if you think that this is right, do it, irrespective of what customer feels. If you feel that this is wrong, don't do it.
Yeah. Have a moral compass of sorts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, so
Thanks so much for sharing this this whole story, of course, of Signsy and where you guys are going and all the very cool stuff you've built. Any parting notes? How are you scaling? Are you hiring? You want to do a shout out to the kind of folks who want to maybe work with you guys on all of this interesting stuff? What kind of roles do you usually look at? And of course, where can people reach you? Are you on Twitter or any other handle you want to share?
So one of the things that we are looking for is massively hiring. So the roles that are open are product, tech, sales,
pretty much everything.
Everything. So we are growing very, very fast. We were, I think, 20 people 3 months ago. We are suddenly 50.
Oh wow!
So that's a good jump.
So we are, and we are still, I think we'll hit 100
within the year.
Within the year, or maybe
Wow! And this is
financial year, yeah.
And so this is across Bombay and Bangalore.
This is across Bombay and Bangalore. So a big shout out to anyone who wants to be a part of the journey. Whatever the skill set, my belief is that you should be aligned on the vision.
Right.
If you want to solve that problem, if you want to do what we are doing, just come on board. We will always find something that you can do to fulfill that vision.
Nice.
But the core thing we need is that you should be aligned to our vision.
Nice. Where do folks reach you? You want to give a Twitter handle or anything else?
Yeah, so we have, if you want to reach out to us, apply, then we have angel.co.
Yeah.
You can apply at angel.co with us, or I'm very active on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I reply to all my LinkedIn messages.
Awesome.
Twitter, we are fine. We are not that big on Twitter. So
you want to stay away from all the other conversations that happen there about identity and privacy, and where everyone is a armchair activist.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate there.
Yes. All right. But on that note, we are on Twitter and we are on
everything.
On everything.
We're also on Slack. Did you know that we're on Slack?
Yes.
If you want to join our Slack channel, go to ivmpodcast.com/Shunya1. Over there's a button saying subscribe to the Slack channel. We'll send you an invite. Also, guys, please remember reviews. Reviews really, really help. So please go to your iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Saavn or YouTube or wherever you can and just drop us a comment, drop us a review. That stuff is really appreciated.
All right. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
The modern world is obsessed with food and agriculture. Everywhere you look, new and exciting technologies are bringing food innovation to your street market, your grocery store, your doorstep, and your plate. From our quest for the perfect food photos to our rediscovery of ancient grains. Quite simply, food has never been sexier. But guess what? The modern food system is broken. It's a major cause of climate change, antibiotic resistance, and global poverty. So how did we get here, and where are we going? Most importantly, how are we going to feed 10 billion people globally by the year 2050 through better, more sustainable means. I'm Varun Deshpande.
And I'm Ramya Ramurthy. And we work for the Good Food Institute, a global non-profit accelerating the transformation to a more healthy, sustainable, and just food system. The next food revolution is here. On Feeding 10 Billion, we're giving you the inside view. You can tune into us every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Hi, I'm Sarayu Natarajan.
And I'm Alok Prasanna Kumar.
And we are the hosts of the Ganatantra podcast.
On this podcast, we speak to academics, social scientists, journalists, and activists to find out what's actually going on in Indian politics.
On this podcast, we stay away from personality politics, intrigue, and gossip, and instead focus on the data, research, and analysis that drives all this.
So tune in to the Ganatantra podcast, where new episodes are out every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.